Beautiful people, what's up? Welcome to the show. It's your boy Smith. This is at Smith the Speaker. You know what I'm saying? How I do, man. Just trying to give away some free game. Tonight we jumping into part three of the Black Dollar with the young, powerful, amazing, inspirational, phenomenal, outside the box thinker, newly appointed assistant principal, Miss Stefisha. It's my sis, like little girl, like she I can't even tell y'all, man, like incredible, like the energy. Like when I
Mm.
talk to people, I be like, man, y'all don't know Steph? What's the problem with you, man? You ain't nobody then, man. You know what I'm saying? So I get the chance. So I seen a lot of things over the weekend because it was All-Star weekend here in the Bay. Basketball, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? By the way, uh, we went and tapped in with the HBCU Classic over at the Oakland Coliseum. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Had my
yes.
son in the house, his girl, our grandson, the missus. It was so thick in there. It was so beautiful to see all those black faces just doing, man. I
Mm.
had made a comment to my most beautiful, and I said, they won't show this. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
That they'll show us in every other environment, but they won't show
Right,
this. You know what I'm
right.
saying? But it was spectacular. I was humbled to be a part of it.
Mm.
Um, because it goes again to what Steph is talking about, this black dollar and how some of us need to start the generational wealth process. Some of us need to enhance or refine how we getting
Mhm.
down. And so far, Steph has given us some great options, some ideas, some sound tactics, if you will, to put some pieces of the puzzle together. And before I get too far, sis, how you feeling? You good?
Oh yeah, I'm
Okay.
blessed, man. You
Okay.
sitting talking about the HBCU game. I feel it. I sent my wife and my son. I had a ticket to go too, but look, I ain't gonna
Oh,
tell nobody I got all the way to the door. And even though my black dollar had the ticket, they told me I couldn't bring my backpack with my laptop inside because I had
yeah,
just came from a movie screen. And I was like,
man,
dang, but that's
man.
okay. And then one thing that my wife said, she was like, man, they should have had bigger sections for the bands and they should have had this and they should have had that. And she was just talking about representation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, yeah, representation matters, man. It
It
matters because they
does.
didn't show the bands going off on the TV. We didn't see that part. You
That
didn't
was
get to see it unless you was in the building.
I got video of it because we was one row in front of the Morehouse band. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So I got video of that, and you're right. We they need more of that. You know what I'm saying? And off screen, I'm going to tell you how you gotta get your computer in because I am you know what I'm saying? I know folks how
You
I
know,
used to
folks,
get
you know,
yeah,
folks.
yeah, I used to get into the Raider game, man, with no ticket, but that's a whole different story. I don't want to bring that up right now. We'll talk about that option.
Dang.
So I do want to point out a couple things before we get started because I got to give Steph her whole floor, her whole space, and I'm gonna get out the way. Um, before we get started, understand this, folks, and it's powerful. Like I have this calendar in front of me. It's uh, black representation 365 days. There's something that happened 365 days, not just 1 month of February, about the importance and the influence and the impact of black people on this country and worldwide, not just in this country. So as I'm looking at it, I want to give y'all something, just to connect everything. Yesterday, February 16th, Frederick Douglass was elected the president of the Freedmen's Bank and Trust. This is
Yes.
1874. So what you need to understand about that was that's right after emancipation. And Congress, now this is where it gets a little murky because we got to understand the context of it all.
Hmm.
We're trying to free people, and I've said this before. You're trying to set people free into an environment, into a society where they're not accustomed to. It's almost setting your 5-year-old off into the world saying, go be successful. And they don't understand how to live. They don't understand anything because they're kids. So that's
Hmm.
kind of the same principle that happened after emancipation was all these black folks was given their freedom, but a lot didn't know how to read. A lot didn't know math. A lot didn't know science. Just understanding of living was a whole different aspect. So this bank Freedmen's Bank and Trust was there to give black folks some capital, if you will. But then you have to understand if I tell you, hey, bro, I'm about to give you 5 bands to go toil this soil, but you ain't explaining the interest rate to this person, then we're not really getting anywhere. It's almost setting us up for failure. So Frederick Douglass was appointed, and it collapsed. And there's different reasons why, but I think we all can put it together. But Black History Month, that's one thing to take with you. Was like we were giving some things, but we weren't giving the understanding how to develop properly and utilize it. And that's why it's important that Steph is here, so we can understand the money, the black dollar, how it affects us, how it affects other people at the same time. Because let me say this, and I don't want to get sidetracked, but if every black person would not have attended the NBA All-Star this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, at any event, I guarantee you, white corporate America would have stood up and be like, what the hell is going on? We need to make a change here. So DEI, let me get off my box. I'm done. Let's recap last week. Last week we talked about corporate to community, the recycled funds, the minority deposit institution, growth equity. We went over about, billions of dollars in consumption is what we do, right? But we're not producers, right? Sis went and explained deeply into the rule of 72 and how it doubles, okay, which I think is important. We need to invest. It should be like second nature. Investing for us should be like second nature. It should be like breathing. I do got my account at One United Bank, been having it for a little bit over a year now. And the important part of what we're doing and what Sis is trying to explain to you is, and this is a part that a lot of us struggle with. It's not about us right now, maybe. It's about your offspring, and it's about their offspring. It's about putting people in place so when your offspring get to the point where, hey, I need this $10,000 capital interest free to open my own barbershop. Okay, we got you. Instead of them having to struggle and go get 10,000 with a 22% APR, and they never owned a barbershop. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of things go into that. I'm done. Before I start and turn this over, Dow Jones down 44,546. S&P is down 0.0072%. NASDAQ up 20,026. Sis, the floor is yours. Do what you do, sis. Bless these people.
Man, look, you could have stayed on that DEI soapbox for a little bit, at least 60 seconds, because what I tell you is it's necessary, man. Yeah. Diversity, equity, and inclusion in the financial space is something that we never, ever had. We never, ever, ever had. You see what I'm saying? Like diversity, like it's not diverse in the financial services industry. Like, I don't see a lot of people that look like me. Less than 2% of advisors are African-American women. You see what I'm saying?
Hey, that's DEI. She just hit y'all with a backhand, underhanded jab on what DEI looks like. I'm going to say this and I'm going to shut up because she put me to it. Says, understand when we talk about DEI and how it's relevant only when it needs to be relevant. An Italian man, and I'm blanking on his name, an Italian man started Bank of America in like the 1800s because he saw a lack of representation for Italians back at that point. So he decided to go ahead and, you know what, we're going to offer this capital assistance, these banking institutions, these savings institutions for Italians. And then over time, it got to be where it is today. So you can see now, if you want to start a bank today, I did the homework. I did the research. If you want to start a bank today, you need about at least 10 million in reserve, 10 million in reserve to cover everything. Okay. So don't talk to me about DEI when it was okay for them to do DEI, but now it's not okay for us to do DEI. Since I'm done, I'm getting off the screen. Do what you do.
Man, I'm telling you, when we say that we need more diverse spaces, like, I guess we could argue it two ways, man. And it's crazy because I know we're talking about finances and I'm going to get there. I promise you. But when I think about it, it's like, is it really like better to, like have integration, or is it better to live in segregation? You know what I mean? Like,
I didn't mean to come back on the screen, but that's a great question.
Come on, man.
Listen, I was talking to my daughter-in-law just this over the weekend. She went to Tuskegee. She's a graduate, and we was talking about.
My son want to go there.
Come on, my son graduated there. Let's say less. We got him in.
One of the
It's
only
nothing.
HBCUs that got ROTC programs. He want to
I,
work in space like aeronautics. He want to
come
work.
on,
He
man.
want to study
Listen,
physics.
listen. We got him covered. We're gonna tap in after this. But we was
Yeah.
talking about like the different avenues that we all have to take. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? And we all have a different avenue to take. Because representation does matter. And we talk about man, look, I know we're up against it. I know tonight might be a short night because sis got the vibe going. Listen,
Man.
you want to talk about financial capitalism and the embedded depthness of capitalism with racism. When Booker T. Washington, excuse me, went to build the campus of Tuskegee. Now, I learned this through a tour that we took. He went to build it. He bought the land, but the builders weren't there. So when he went to buy it, he went to these white folks to say, "Hey, listen, I'm trying to buy some bricks to build this building." The white folks was like, "Nah, we don't sell the niggas." Man, if you ain't standing on principle with that statement because you don't put your racist thoughts before capitalism, you know what I'm saying? So Mr. Washington was like, "Hold on, okay, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna build our own masonry pit. And we're gonna build our own bricks, and we're gonna use those bricks that we build on our land to build these buildings. And those same bricks are still there to this day. And the way they set it up was Tuskegee is one of the only HBCUs to this day that has never been attacked by the Klan, because the way they set it up, Mr. Washington was so understanding of how he wanted this constructed that it's almost a circle. It's two ways in, one from the north, one from the south, blah, blah, blah. The outer buildings are the male dorms, and then the female dorms are on the inside, and then the classes are on the inside, because the males are there to protect everybody else. You know what I'm Listen, when he put it together, man, he knew what he was doing. You know what I'm saying? So then that just goes about financial impact of if someone tells you no, we ain't gonna give you a loan. Now what do you do? Now what do you do? You know what I'm saying, Nish? But what Wu-Tang say? Wu-Tang said cash rules everything around me. I wish somebody would turn down $1 if I went and gave them cash. Right now, if you go and to the Porsche dealership in San Francisco, they 2025 911 is probably going to run you 130 out the door, 130. But I bet you if you go in there with 85 cash, you're going to drive away with that brand new car, because cash rules everything around me. Yes, sir, sis. That's what I'm talking about. DEI if you want to.
Man, like you think about people who are like major investors, like in the African American community, and like how long we've been fighting to like have a foot. And then like once we get a foot, it literally gets taken away by systematic racism and blatant racism. Like I literally was just going down the rabbit hole on OW Gurley. And that for me was major, because to know that like 40 acres of land was purchased to be able to build out the Greenwood community, also known as Black Wall Street, right? And then to know that it was systematically burned down while people gathered at 2 a.m. in the morning, and where the sheriff literally appointed people with different privileges who had no business being appointed as sheriff, literally appointed these people to have different rights that they could enact on Black people, gave them shotguns, gave them literally like cocktail bombs, and was like, go for it. Burn it all down. Literally, you can burn the people down while they in the house. If they try to run out, you can shoot them down. Like that for me was like, and then you talk about, okay, we don't sell bricks to niggas. Okay, well, when they tried to rebuild, it was like, sorry, rezoning, sorry, ordinances, sorry, we can't sell to you. So it's like, you enslave these people, they finally get free, they decide, okay, even in a free but segregated space, we gonna create what it is that we need to thrive. You have OG Gurley and OW Gurley and these other, right? OW Gurley and like all these other leaders who are literally in this space to make it happen, it get burned down, and yet they still come back to say, you know what? We got to try to do it again. Like some people literally came back, refused to leave because they were, it's like my family already didn't have nothing. And then the cold part is like they couldn't even speak out against it, because if you speak out against it, somebody gonna probably come lynch you. So it's
Absolutely.
like, I want to fight for what's mine. I want to fight for what I know is belongs to me. Like you just devastated my entire community. You see what I'm saying? This is 1921, yet fast forward 100 years later in 2025, we still dealing with the same stuff. Where
so that's
we're not getting burned down, but our business is getting bought out from under our feet. We getting rezoned. We getting told that we can't have loans because you got to meet a certain threshold. And sorry, you fall right below it. It's the same thing. We get massacred still.
Whoo, sis, it's so deep. It's back to the original point, like segregation. Is it good or is it bad? You know what I'm saying? And
I'm starting to feel like it's a good thing. I don't need access to something that you don't even want me to have when my people had it better anyways, or just as great as what you would consider. Like, I don't need yours. We got ours.
That goes to the Eurocentric driven ideology of capitalism in that sense, because Eurocentric capitalism drives the notion that we all want to be like them and that we can't do it a different way. You know what I'm saying?
Like us, though. We don't want to do it like them. They not like us. We had our own schools and post offices and banks and bus services and tailors and all of that. We had it all.
And that goes to why I made my comment that if every black person would have just boycotted this entire NBA weekend, or in last week, 2 weekends in a row, you boycott the Super Bowl, you boycott the NBA All-Star. That's a major dollar shift in an earthquake through the economic structure of this entire world. Because that's when you say enough is enough.
Yep.
Because what you're doing is not right. And
that's
to your point,
I respect my black dollar.
And I'm gonna shut up after this because I know you got work you got to share, but it's important that people understand, like, we can't just keep accepting what's given to us.
Nope.
It's so much better than that, and we're gonna keep falling victim to this. Like sis said, 100 years ago, they was talking about redlining. They called it segregation, but it was redlining. Right. You know what I'm saying? And today we still doing the same thing. They redlining us, and they just ain't redlining us on where we can buy houses. They redlining us on our healthcare. They redlining us on how high we can go in the corporate office. Yep. I got firsthand knowledge of that. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So again, until we stand up, what's that saying? You don't stand up, you're gonna fall for everything.
Well, you're gonna fall for everything.
We got to stand up and stand on 10 toes down business, like these youngsters is saying, and stop conforming and accepting. And I had said this to my youngest son: if LeBron, Steph, KD, Kyrie, all these other actor black cats in the NBA decided, you know what, we done with the NBA. We're gonna go start our new thing. Man, the NBA would crumple. The NBA
if golf could do it, because they felt like, and it wasn't even black people who did it. It was just people that felt like they wasn't getting a fair shake. You feel me? If black people decided we ain't getting our fair shake, we gonna take our talent and build a league our own. Do you know how crazy, insane that would be? We create our own pipelines for the league, and now you ain't got to worry about the crazy recruiting through the NAA, through the NAA. I say NAACP, through the NCAA. Because, look, you got me going, man.
Oh no,
but own pipeline.
Absolutely. Why not? You know what I'm saying? And I promise you, I'm shutting up after this because we got to listen.
Okay, I'm about to get into the knowledge. Look,
I'm into the work right now to create the pipeline from BSUs in the local high schools up here to the BSUs to the local community colleges. We're gonna create our own pipeline. We're gonna disenfranchise juvenile probation. I promise you that. That's my goal. That's my job. We're gonna disenfranchise juvenile probation. You ain't got no business in this world right now, because if we're supposed to be the most progressive country on this planet, then we cannot be progressive if we're constantly sending black and Latino boys into jail and confining them. Sis, I'm done. Take over the show. It's your world.
Man, if that look, I'm telling y'all, if y'all don't do nothing but listen to the first 20 minutes of this show, I promise you're gonna get some jewels dropped to you, right? So, hey, once again, my name is Stephisha Ecoy Walton. I am your local financial advisor. I'm your neighborhood hope dealer, right? Got to give you some hope. But for me, I take a lot of pride in being a licensed financial advisor because, quite honestly, I mean, there are not a whole lot of me. And if you look at even further, people who are certified financial planners that are specifically Black or African American is 1.9%. Now, I don't have a CFP designation, but I'm still top 7%. You see what I'm saying? As a Black financial advisor, a personal financial advisor. So it's like we all fighting to get into the top 2%, the top 1%. Well, find an area in your life where you can increase the percentage. Find an area of life that you can infiltrate as a Black person and say, you know what? I might not see a whole lot of me here, but there needs to be some of me here, because if not, then my people just gonna keep getting the same lack of information or lack of access that they've had up until this point. So the point of me being with y'all today is so that we can dive into part 3, just a little bit around, kind of like we already came off of talking about the rule of 72, compound interest, right? But you really want to think about, okay, once you learn about compound interest, once you learn about how your money grows, how do you begin to make decisions around what to actually do with that money? And like when you should take your step forward. And part of it, yeah, is getting educated, but the other part of it really is having a financial advisor. And a lot of people don't either believe in having a financial advisor, they don't trust in a financial advisor, or they're just like, I can't afford a financial advisor, right? And if you think about it, being Black in America, you probably have been told, have heard, have felt, have seen, or somehow, subways, subconsciously, been led on to the fact that financial advisors aren't for you and your people. But that's not true. I mean, yeah, it might stand at what, 35, 36% of Black people actually have a financial advisor if they have between, say, what, 50,000 and $150,000 worth of investable assets. And a lot of us don't have that. But at the end of the day, what stops you from asking somebody from the very, very beginning, hey, I got an extra $200 in every paycheck, or I got an extra $200 a month. What could I be doing with it, right? And so that's why, and let me share my screen. That's why when it comes to, linking up with a financial advisor and having professional management and, making sure that you have somebody to ask questions to, it's important, y'all. Like it's more than important, because let me tell you something. Before I actually became an advisor, I was a broke college graduate, and that's just to keep it G, like super broke college graduate, right? I did everything I was supposed to do. I went to school, I got good grades, I didn't have children early, I didn't get addicted to drugs, I didn't, abuse alcohol, I didn't do any of those things. Yet and still, after I graduated college, I was making $13 an hour, like $13.50 at a physical therapy clinic, still trying to figure out how to make extra money on the weekends by doing an extra shift, because the money that I was making just wasn't enough to pay my rent. And so for me, it's like, how did I do all of this? Like, I went through college, I graduated, like I stayed on track. Like, how don't I have what it is that I need? And then I realized, well, man, there's experts at everything. And quite honestly, I'm just not an expert at money. And then I heard somebody say, well, even the manager at McDonald's can be financially independent. And I laughed until I saw the math. And I was like, oh, like it really is true. Like that really is a thing. Like a person at McDonald's really could become financially independent if they manage their money right and if they knew what was going on, per se, in their economy at any given time. So I just want to throw out a couple facts for y'all. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this particular information because I want to get into tangible information that you can actually use. But just to kind of put it in front of you, the U.S. economy has grown 2.5% in 2004, right? So last year, even though it was down 3.2% since the previous year in 2023. So what does that mean? Even though we were down, the economy wasn't growing in 2023, we were up in 2024, even though it felt a little rough, right? we were coming back out of COVID. And so the economy grew by 2.3% in the fourth quarter of last year, meaning that there was more consumer spending. There was more people out buying cars, buying, different things at retail stores. And you see this loosening of the economy and people feeling a little bit better, right? But what you got to consider is that when that starts to happen and consumers get happy and more money get pumped into the economy, is that good for us or is that bad for us? It's not necessarily a good thing, because now that's money coming out of your pocket and into the economy, never to be seen again. But if that's where the economy is and they say, okay, well, the economy feel better, people spending more money, we got more jobs that are being taken up, so people are happier, and yay, we're exceeding expectations. Most people are like, okay, well, if the economy is doing good, that means I should be investing, right, Steph? Well, let me hurry up and hop in and invest while the economy is doing good. But if you remember what I told you last time we met, it's not you timing the market when, okay, it's not double Dutch. It's like, let me just get in this thing and let me just keep jumping. I ain't gonna even stop. I'm gonna just jump every single month. That's what I'm gonna do, because let me paint a picture for you. Let's say it's you and your homeboy or you and your homegirl, and y'all got a bet going, and you say, hey, look, check this out. I bet you we can each invest $100, but I'm only going to invest when the economy is doing good, when it's rising. I'm invest my $100 every single month. And your friends say, okay, that's cool, but I'm invest my $100 whether the economy is up, down, side to side. Like I'm just going to keep investing every single month. And you say, that's cool. You could take the fluctuating market. I'm going to take the rising market. Friends say, okay, that's cool. So every month for 6 months, y'all put in $100, right? Into y'all own accounts. Now, at the end of 6 months, you've put in $600, right? Same for them. Now, what you got to consider is most people will say, shoot, you were investing in a market that was consistently rising. You probably made out better than your friend did who invested in a market that was going up and down. But then if you were to step back and you were to really look at it, and you were to really look at the specifics and the math of it, you'd say, okay, I invested in an increasing market and a rising market, meaning that every single month I invest $100. What I'm buying with that $100, which are shares in the economy, is costing me more every month. For example, I like Apple. I got an Apple phone. I got a MacBook. I got an iPad. Right? You got key tags, you got all this stuff that's Apple, right? So you decide, I want to invest in Apple. This is not investment advice. I'm just telling you, this is the example. You decide you want to invest in Apple. So you take your $100 every single month and you're investing it in Apple. Apple's consistently growing as a company and you consistently putting your money into it, right? But what happens is the first month you were able to put in your $100 and it bought you 10 shares of Apple because each share was $10. But in the rising economy, the next month, they were $12 instead of 10. So you were only able to buy 8.3 shares. And in the next month, month 3, they were $14 instead of $12 or $10. So now you're able to buy even less. And by the time you get to that 6th month, you still invest in your $100. But now the shares have literally grown in price to $20 a share. So whereas in month 1, you were able to buy 10, in month 6, you only able to buy 5 because you said, I'm only investing in a rising economy, right? But now let's go over to your friend. She looking at you like, how many shares was you able to buy over 6 months? You like, I bought 42 shares. And she like, okay, all right. You bought 42 shares. That's cool. And your last shares, okay, you bought them at $20 a piece. Okay, cool. And she say, well, I invested my $100 every month too. And I invested in the economy, whether it was going up or down, right? Have y'all ever heard of the term buy low and sell high? Think about it. That's fluctuating economy, right? So if you buy low and you sell high, that's letting you know that the economy is going up and down. The economy is supposed to go up and down. If it don't go up and down, you don't have an advantage. So what happened is your friend said, okay, Steph, I invested $100 every month too. I spent the same $600 that you did. In month 1, we both spent $10 for each one of our shares, and we both were able to buy 10 shares apiece. But in month 2, when you was in the rising economy, my economy was falling. So my shares, they were only worth $7 a piece. So I still purchased them, even though they was only worth $7 a piece. But the upside was that I was able to buy more shares. I bought 14 shares, 14.29 shares. So yeah, they were worth less, but at least I bought more. And then month 3, They were only worth $4. So now I bought 25 shares as opposed to month one when I was only able to buy 10 because they was $10 a piece. So by the end of month 6, I've spent my $100 every single month investing in Apple, and I was able to buy 126 shares. Steph was only able to buy 42. So when I look at investing in an economy that's consistently rising versus an economy that's fluctuating, the maths when it says invest in a fluctuating economy. And the reason being is because what happens is you will always get the cheapest price per share on average when you invest in a fluctuating economy. If the economy is always rising, that means the price that you're going to pay per share is always going to go higher and higher and higher. In this example, your price per share is literally in a rising economy, it's going to end up being $14.19 on average per share. So you bought 42 shares, but on average, you spent $14.20 or $14.19 per share. Whereas your friend that invested in the fluctuating economy and was like, hey, I don't care what they say on CNBC. I don't care what they say in Forbes magazine. I don't care what I read in the finance column of the newspaper. I don't care what come across my Apple News. I'm still going to invest my $100. I don't care if the sky fall. I don't care if we get a new president. I don't care if Nike go out of business. I don't care if all of the Uber cars and Teslas blow up from driving by themselves and they have a malfunction. I don't care. I'm investing my $100 a month. Good economy, bad economy. Investor B, your friend, was able to buy 126 shares, and because they kept going, whether the economy was up or down, they literally only spent $4.76 on average per share. So they beat you out on average by $10 per share. Imagine having to pay an extra $10 for anything when you could have got it at a cheaper price. So principles of investing say that if you are somebody who continues to invest in a fluctuating market, you win every single time, right? And the reason being is because at the end of the day, you don't want to continuously be charged more than what you have to if you can get it on discount. So when we talk about investing, there's 3 things that you want to keep in mind, and we call it the 3 Ds of investing. One is dollar cost averaging. The second one is discipline. And the third one is diversification. So when it comes to dollar cost averaging, that's exactly what I just explained to you, which is you having a set amount of money that you invest every single month, rain, sleet, or snow, so that you can get the best cost per share on average. That's what you want. So you want a dollar cost average every month. I'm going to put away my $100, my $200, my $500, my $1,000 every month without fail. That's what I can do. It's not going to hurt me. It's like tithing to yourself. This is you paying yourself first. This is rule number 1, right? Now, the second thing is having discipline. So if you know that your portfolio calls for you to have an emergency fund for emergencies, or if you quit your job, get fired, get laid off, something like that, be disciplined in building up that account. You have to have discipline in making sure that you're saving for your short-term needs, because you don't want to be forced to take money out of a retirement account or a long-term account to meet a short-term need, because you'll end up being penalized by the IRS, which is a tax penalty of 10%, and you'll have to pay taxes based on your tax bracket of whatever you pull out. So you have to be disciplined when it comes to investing to know, okay, if I got 3 buckets I need to be filling, let me fill these 3 buckets. If I know I get paid every other week, twice a month, once a month, I need to make sure that I'm prepared for that. If I'm an independent contractor and my paydays are a little scattered, I need to make sure I'm planning for that. I really should be taking 5 or 10% out of each time I get paid, because I don't know how often I'm going to get paid, right? And then when it comes down to diversifying, that's not just talking about the individual investment itself. Yes, mutual funds are diversified. That's what we were talking about last chat, right? So a mutual fund is where I pool my money with your pool. I pool my money, you pool your money, neighbor pool their money, everybody pool their money together into one big old account, the mutual fund. And we investing in 150 to 200 companies at the same time. And all of our money pooled together equal out $2 billion. And now the investment company is working with our $2 billion in the economy, and they making profits. And at the end of their cycle, they give us back a dividend, right? So we can be diversified in that mutual fund because we invested in over 150 to 200 companies at the same time with our little $100, right? So you can be diversified in that sense, but you also need to focus on being diversified in the sense of the accounts that you have in total: emergency funds, short-term retirement account, both types of retirement accounts. That's diversification across savings. You also need to be diversified in regards to where your money is being held. So do you have money in the coffee can, under the mattress? So if the tire go flat right now, you can go pull $300 to get it fixed from under the mattress without worrying about a transfer to take an extra 24 to 48 hours, right? But are you diversified enough to where, okay, yeah, I got money under my mattress, but I also got money invested in land. I also have money in my retirement accounts and my kids' college savings accounts and a short-term account for tax purposes, so on and so forth. Are you diversified in that way? Are you diversified in the type of products that you have? Meaning my job might not offer me a pension, but I know I can get an annuity. So before I get to that point, let me have these 401ks, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs to lead me up to that point. So are you diversified in your plan, or are you just like, I'm going to say $25 a month for the rest of my life, and that's just all I'm going to do? That's not a whole lot of diversification, right? So the reason, I bring these things up and I really put these things in front of us is because if we don't consider these things right now, we get to the end of the road where we like, okay, well, I know I was supposed to invest. I know I was supposed to have an investment advisor, but quite honestly, I didn't even know who to go to, right? And so when you think about the general sense of how money works, and if you're watching me visually, I'm skipping over a couple slides because they're interactive, but being financially stable, it consists of a lot of different layers. It consists of you getting educated, you understanding how to implement, when to implement, and then having the courage to implement, right? Because some people say, well, Steph, I'm in debt. How you expect for me to save and invest when I'm already in debt? Like, how am I supposed to pay it off? Well, you got to have a plan, and having a plan to get out of debt has to work hand in hand with your plan to invest. Because if you're so far deep in debt to where you're like, I'm just not going to invest until I get out of debt, you might spend 20 years trying to get out of debt, never saving for your future. So by the time you're out of debt, now you're going to spend another 20, 25 years working, trying to save money just to be able to retire or live the life that you desire, right? So having a debt stacking plan is one of those things that, yes, is good for helping you get out of debt, but it's also good with helping you understand, okay, where could I be consolidating? Where could I be, changing things? Because the one thing that I know is I want my overall interest rate of my investment accounts to be growing at a greater rate than the overall interest rate of my debt. So when I look at the interest rate on my mortgage, when I look at the interest rate on my cars, when I look at the interest rate of my credit cards, when I look at the interest rates of everything that I have to pay in terms of debt, let's say that average out to be, I don't know, 15% that I'm paying in debt payments, right? I'm paying in interest. Well, if my investments are only growing at 3 or 4%, that means that my debt is growing faster than my investments, which means it's going to be very hard for me to get out of debt and be comfortable later on in life, right? So the one thing that you want to consider when it comes to paying off your debt is, what type of debt do you have? How quickly is it growing? And how is that going to affect you in the future? Because when you line your debt up, some needs to be paid off before the other. A couple of facts that I have for y'all, just in terms of types of debt and how it's affecting the Black population. When you think about student loan debt, you think about credit card debt, you think about mortgages, right? These are kind of like the three big buckets of debt that most people have. Well, as of 2022, Black borrowers had an average student loan debt of $44,000 compared to white borrowers who had an average of $39,000. Now it's only a gap of $5,000, but 5,000 compounded over years, that's a comma. That's a six-figure number. And imagine being in debt $100,000, $200,000, all because you want to go to college too, right? And then you think about credit cards and you think about Black families. Some say, well, okay, Black families got less credit card debt than white families. Well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because in order for you to get credit, you have to be credible, right? which means that you've had some type of way to show your credit worthiness, whether it was you having access to other capital and credit, whether it was you having access to have a mortgage. So now you've been paying it consistently. So now the access that you have to additional credit is more. You see what I'm saying? So having access to credit for Black families is just as important to be able to leverage for their business ventures, right? For their personal financial ventures, whether it's buying a house or financing a business or whatever it may be. So some say, well, I mean, it's a good thing that, we have, a lower credit card balance. Well, yes and no, because sometimes carrying a balance and actually managing that balance properly in business credit shows your worthiness. So somebody will offer you an additional 25 grand in credit simply because you've been able to show that you can carry and manage a balance, right? So we got to look at both sides of the coin. And then when you think about mortgages, just 4 or 5 years ago at the beginning of COVID, the median mortgage debt for Black households was 121,000 compared to 135,000 for white households. Once again, some people say, well, at least Black household had less mortgage debt. Well, maybe it's a good and a bad thing. From my perspective and in my lens, it's a bad thing because that means that we don't have access to as much real estate capital as white families would have, right? So when you think about it, overall, our debt and the way that it's affected us from generation to generation has, one, led us to have lack of financial education, which two means that we don't have great financial habits. And without great financial habits, we find ourselves with bad credit. And with bad credit, you ultimately have high interest rates. And when you have high interest rates, you stay in this cycle of debt that you can never, ever get out of, right? So here's a good example for you. When we talked about compounding interest and we talked about the rule of 72 last time we met, we were talking about how it can work for you, right? How if you take any interest rate that someone gives you and you divide that interest rate into the number 72, it will tell you roughly how long it's going to take for your money to double, right? So if I'm getting a 10% interest rate on my money, that means it's going to double roughly every 7.2 years. But let's say, for instance, instead of me getting a 10% interest rate, let's say I'm being charged 10% on a credit card. That means that my balance of my credit card is going to double every 7.2 years. Well, in this example, let's say you had a $3,000 credit card purchase and you made that purchase with an 18% interest rate and you didn't put not another purchase on that credit card. And all you ever did was make the minimum payment on the credit card, never paying it off, right? It will literally take you almost 10 years to pay the credit card off. And you would end up paying an additional $2,000 plus in interest simply because you were only paying the minimum balance. And each time you went to make another payment, your balance was barely dwindling down. So compound interest in the form of growth, but also in the form of debt is something that we need to be very, very mindful of when it comes to putting together a debt stacking plan and an investment plan. Because when you think about it, like when I went to college, y'all, I didn't get credit cards in college because that was the thing that my parents told me not to do. My dad introduced me to Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Still got the book under my coffee table now. I should have read it at 16 when my dad told me to. Shame on me. Didn't read it until I got to college. But once I did, I was grateful because the one thing that I did remember when he told me was, hey, Steph, just keep in mind, you're going to have some debt that's fixed. It's just going to be what it is, right? Where you're going to pay it every single month. But then you got that revolving debt. You got that credit card debt where if you don't do right by yourself and you got revolving credit card debt, and let's say it's at 18% and you're not doing what you got to do, Steph, you can ultimately end up finding yourself in a hole. And I didn't initially understand, okay, there's a difference between credit card debt or not credit card debt, but debt that's just revolving where, okay, I run my credit card up and then I pay it off. And then I run it up halfway and then I pay it off. And then I use a quarter of it and I pay it off and I run it up halfway. It's revolving. I just keep on using it, right? But let's say, for instance, I have a house and let's say it's fixed at 4.5%. It's all it ever is. And I'm going to be paid off in a certain amount of time. Well, that's helpful for me because I'm not paying something off, using it again, paying it off, using it again. It's like, no, it's fixed. Once you pay it off, you pay it off, right? And so ultimately, your fixed debt you want to be mindful of, but your revolving debt is sometimes will get you in trouble because if you don't pay it all off and then that interest starts to compound, it will bury you in the end. And then not only are you like literally unable to come from under the debt because you don't make enough, now your morale is shot and you like, I ain't even gonna try, right? So my suggestion when it comes to putting your whole plan together and looking at it big picture, if debt is something that's really kind of stopping you or hindering you from being able to move forward, you got to line it all up. You got to be real and transparent with yourself. You got to be willing to say, dang, you know what? I know it's going to be tough for me to really face my own music, but let me get me a sheet of paper. Let me write down the debt. Let me write down the total balance of what's due. Let me write down the minimum payment that's due. Let me write down the interest rate on this particular debt. And let me write down the date that I'm projected to have it paid off if I just only pay the minimum payment. And then once you do that, you can begin to see I'm really going to be in debt for a long time if I only make these minimum payments. And if that don't motivate you to put a plan in place to where you stack this debt like I'm about to explain to you, then I don't know what will. Because what happens is a lot of us find ourselves robbing Peter to pay Paul, and we never get a chance to pay any of them back all at the same time. It's just like that payday loan, right? You go in, you need 255. You think you got 2 weeks to pay it back. 2 weeks come up, something else didn't happen. And yeah, you can give them back the 255. But if you do, you're going to be tight. So rather than give them 255, what you really do is give them $45 to keep, and you keep the 255 and you stay in debt, right? So when we look at this and we say, okay, I got a Macy's card, I got a JC Penney card, I got a car loan, and I got a Best Buy card, then I got my mortgage, right? And you line these things up. What I do for my clients is I have a debt stacking program. I literally type in all their credit cards. I type in all their interest rates. I type all the information in. I push a button and I let the entire program do the math for me. But if you want to do it by hand, you could take you a regular white sheet of paper, list all your debts, list what the minimum payment is every single month. And you say, okay, what's the total balance that I owe on all of these accounts? Find the one that has the lowest total balance due and the lowest interest rate. That's the one, or excuse me, and the highest interest rate. That's the one you want to pay off first, right? Because if you can knock that one out, now the little bit that's due is not going to grow fast because the interest rate on that one is so big. You're going to be able to just knock it out. But then now the money that you use to pay that one off. So let's say you were paying $220 every month on that credit card. Well, now that that credit card is not there, you don't get to pocket 220. You don't get to buy a new pair of shoes. You don't get to go out to eat an extra 2 times, 3 times. No, now you're going to debt stack that. So on credit card number 2, instead of just paying, say, your $350, now you're going to pay your $350 plus the $220 that you was paying from the other card that you just paid off. So now total every month, you're going to be paying $570 rather than just the $352 on the second, or just the $350 on the second credit card. So what you have to consider is that as you line up all of these bills and as you're willing to snowball what it is that you have available onto the next bill to where they're all paid off, you'll get to a point where, okay, now, yeah, I was initially making all my minimum payments, but because I paid that first one off and that freed up that money, now I can add that to bill number 2 and pay bill number 2 off faster. Once bill number 2 is paid off, now I'm going to take that whole amount, which includes what I was paying on bill number 1, now what I was paying on bill number 2 that's paid off, and now I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it on bill number 3. And bill number 3 going to be paid off that much faster. And I'm going to do that all the way until I snowball and pay off all of my debt, not just some of it, right? So when it comes to snowballing debt or debt stacking debt, whichever term you want to use, it's a way for you to come up out of the debt cycle faster and for you to save on the amount of interest that you're going to end up paying. Because what happens is you can either use debt stacking or snowballing, or you cannot use it. And the example that I was just sharing with you, if, say, for instance, in that example, if you don't use debt stacking, it's literally going to take you 23 years to get out of debt versus the 9 years that you could spend if you just debt stack. So you're going to get out 14 years sooner, right? And you're going to avoid $130,000 worth of interest. So if you don't debt stack and you don't snowball your debt, you're going to end up paying $215,000 worth of interest as opposed to just $83,000 in interest on the credit cards, the home mortgage, and all the other debts that you have, right? Now, the cold part is you putting out the exact same amount of money every single month, which is roughly $2,720 on your debt payments. The only difference is you're utilizing that $2,700 in a different way when you debt stack. So you can either split it across minimum payments, or you can debt stack and work on still putting out the 2720 even as you pay debts completely off. So what happens is by the time you all out of debt, what if you took the 2720 and now you decided, you know what? I'm out of debt. So now I'm just going to invest that 2720. Now you can let compounding interest work for you in your favor, right? So what happens is we find ourselves in debt. We get so frustrated and anxious over being in debt that we just say, you know what, I don't want to deal with it anymore. And then it just snowballs out of control rather than us taking it and saying, you know what, I'm going to avoid the common mistakes that typically happen. I'm going to avoid credit traps. I'm going to avoid the payday loans. I'm going to avoid buying more than what I can actually afford. I'm going to pay attention to the interest rates on the car that I buy or on the, the home mortgage that I'm getting. I'm going to monitor my credit every year, every 6 months, every quarter. I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to make sure I try to keep my credit cards under 30%. I'm going to do all of these things, right? So if we don't do these things, we find ourselves frustrated and feeling like there's no solutions, no options for us. But if we do these things, we have the opportunity to put ourselves in a much better situation and ultimately allow ourselves to feel confident about where we're going. Now, I'm not going to dive into the life insurance piece right now because I want to ultimately save that part for when we meet on our last and final meeting, because that in itself is I need you to take action after that. That is the foundation of your house. So I've given you everything except for the floor. The last thing I'm going to share with you is the first thing you need to put in place, right? But when you think about kind of some of the things that we went over today, just in terms of the debt piece and the financial advisor piece and all those things, you have to consider, if you've been doing this one thing for so long, and maybe it was this thing that was passed down from your grandparent to your mom, now to you, or from your grandparents to your father, now to you, whether it be how you save, where you save, the type of habits you have around your money. Are you, splitting your bills up and putting them in envelopes and writing a physical check every month? Or are you scheduling bill pay every month, right? Out of your bank account or out of your online payment system? Like, how do you handle your bills, right? Having a financial advisor and having somebody to just put a plan on paper for you is an opportunity for you to just like release, for you to release responsibility, in a sense of, if you don't know what to do, how to do, that's the job of your advisor. They're supposed to put together a financial needs analysis for you. They're supposed to put it on paper, so whether they're around or not, you still know what exactly needs to be done, right? So all I can say is that as we move into week 4 and our last session next week on Monday, I really, really, really want you to focus on thinking about what steps have you already taken versus the steps that you need to take. So when we think about a financial house, our life insurance is the foundation, right? But then after that, we have our budget and we have to look at, okay, am I in debt? If so, I need a debt stacking plan, right? And then I have to look at, do I have a living will and my trust and all that stuff on the roof? And then my walls are my investments. That's what keep me tight and really keep me stable for future. So have I put all these different things in place? And if I haven't, which ones do I still need? And if it's all of them, okay, where should you start with what I'm going to tell you next week, which is the life insurance piece? And a precursor to that is just to say, and Smith, you might have something to say about this piece. Typically in communities like mine, like East Oakland or in Vallejo, where I grew up, when somebody passes away, most times Our families don't just have 15, 20 grand to go pull from the bank and be like, here you go, take care of it. And most times we don't even have life insurance in place unless it was something that our great aunt or our grandmas or something did. And then you just kind of took over, right? So what happens is we find ourselves in this financial turmoil. And rather than us being able to set our families up for success and actually leave a legacy of money behind, we're actually putting them in debt because our death is always untimely, because even though we know our birth date, we don't know our death date. So when we pass, it's untimely. And now the family like, man, can you pull 500? Can you pull 5,000? We need an extra 1,500. Can you ask the church? Can you ask this person or that person? Can you put the jar up on the counter at the liquor store? We need about 8,500 quarters. Like it just is just one of those things where we put ourselves behind. But the talk that we're going to have about life insurance next week is really going to be to help you understand why it's foundationally important, but also too, be careful of the traps that you fall into when somebody come across and they tell you, hey, your life insurance should be able to retire you. What? When they tell you, hey, you should be able to pull money out of your life insurance to buy a house. What? Hey, if you have an emergency, you should be able to go to your life insurance policy and pull money out. You can send your kids to college too. What? So next week, we're going to talk about them things called IULs and VULs and ULs, and all the other cash value stuff. So tap in with me, because if you miss 1 through 3, 4 is going to be the deal breaker for you. I promise you.
Deal breaker. Sis, hey, you gave us so California term. You gave us hella free game in less than 45 minutes tonight. I know I tapped in and took some of that time earlier.
I loved it.
By far phenomenal. So a couple things. So, you know, when I go in, because what you said earlier really hit me. When you was talking about you got to be an expert at money, right? And so we got so many young people that want the bag, but don't even know how to obtain it and then how to keep it to make it sustainable. Like to me, and I could be wrong, it seems like young folks just want the bag and don't understand it's not a one-step process. Like you don't go buy the bag and it's there forever. You know what I'm saying?
It's cyclical. You got to keep working the system.
Absolutely, right. But to that point, because I wrote right down when you said an expert at money, I wrote down practice makes perfect. Right. So we got to start understanding as a community, if we want generational wealth, then we have to live it and practice generational wealth. What does it look like? The things we're doing now, telling you the difference of all of these different ways to get out of debt, because that was another one that hit me. Because I think what you said, like, sis, you want me to do this, but man, I'm in hella debt right now. Well, you know, sometimes we got to face the facts and be like, yeah, I am in debt. Let me, can I kill off one credit card? Boom. You know what I'm saying? Let me kill off one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I think where we fall victim to, like you said, now just because we killed off one credit card in 7 months, don't mean we take that free $75 or $100, whatever it was, and go frivolous. Now we got to put that towards the next credit card. Now, instead of paying minimum amount on that, now we doubling down on it. So hopefully it gets paid up quicker. You know what I'm saying? So, but again, I think like you said, sis, like, and again, I want to keep you a couple extra minutes tonight, and I know you got to go. So whenever you got to jet, just jet. Because just talking finances is hard for a lot of people because we've never been exposed to the conversation of finances.
Right.
You know, who has 5,000? Well, you know what? To your point, how much does it cost to bury somebody?
Right now, if you want to cremate them, you could get away with about 5 racks, right? But if you want to actually lay them down to rest, you want to have a nice little plot, you know, that whole deal, call it about 17.5. And it depends on where you gonna have it, right? Because then you're really looking at about 25 grand to make it how you need it, to carry them in, carry them out, break the ground, fill it back up, nice casket. And don't let them be a couple extra pounds, because now your casket wider. You see what I'm saying? Like, all these things matter and people don't even realize it, even down to autopsies that got to be performed.
And so here's the thing, when we talk about the Black community, you know, again, the taboo things we don't talk about. teenage pregnancy,
man.
right? Unexpected pregnancy, death, early death, whether it's the grandma, whether it's the parent or whatever. So all of these things have it costs you about, and I'm just throwing a wild guess, it costs you about 50 bands to have a baby. Am I right or am I wrong?
Somewhere around there? Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. So when we start talking about Planned Parenthood, and we start talking about all these other things, these are the conversations we need to be having with these young folks. Like, here's the one thing I try not to do, sis. I try not to preach to kids and be like, don't go do this, because I did that.
Right.
Well, what I would try to encourage you is, okay, you may do this, but understand the impact, the ramifications that come with it. Because now you go in here and have a child, you're looking at 50 bands.
Right.
And then now, let's just be real. Your child needs health care after the child is born. And then at some point in time, the child's going to need to be fed and need diapers and continued health care and then daycare. I said this the other day. I don't know, maybe not the other day, man. Listen here. You want to make some money, get into daycare. Daycare, if you got 3 kids, it's probably more than your mortgage.
Absolutely, which is ridiculous to me.
It's the same, but those are the real. When we start talking about finances, and this is the reason that I tapped in with sis and was like, "Hey, can you do something on this so we can talk about it and figure out how we can create generational wealth and reverse some of the cycles that we're going through, because we're just going back and doing the exact same thing over and over, And I'm gonna shut up after this, sis, and we're gonna get up out of here because I know you got to go. I was thinking about this while you was talking. And I was doing some quick calculations. You can get a house in California. And it ain't gonna be brand new or nothing, but I'm saying you can probably get a house for about 600 bands. Right? Cash out the door.
Yep.
This is the one thing I hope that this conversation that this vital information that you're sharing, this conversation that we're having, and so many other brothers are having. If we could get 30 people, that's 20 bands. That's 20 bands for 30 people. We can go buy a house, cash. It's ours.
No mortgage.
We rent it out. You can rent that house out for 4 bands a month. That's going to pocket each 30 person $1,600. If we keep it in a trust, that's 50 bands a year. 2 years, we got 100 bands to go buy another house. Now, these 30 people have created the process of generational wealth for their families. Won't be no more, let's go get a GoFundMe account. Nah, bro. We own this house over here that's making money for us.
So what you're saying, Smith, is that we about to create this group and we about to pull our funds together and we about to create this trust and generational wealth for our families and our kids, right? That's what you're saying.
You heard me right there.
So y'all heard the call to action. If y'all trying to join this trust, y'all better go ahead and drop Smith the speaker a line.
Look, and don't and here's the part, because again, we have been without for so long, we don't know how to be with it. Let me say that again. We have been without for so long, we don't know how to be with it. You know what I'm saying? So I understand if I enter into this trust, it ain't even about me. I won't even see this. And it's not about me.
Long legacy.
Long. This is about my grandsons. Facts. Looking back like, damn, my peepaw jumped into this and did this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And now we ain't even got to, when we started this, we don't need no white institutions to go lend from.
No.
This one $600,000 investment that 30 people went into has changed the lives, the trajectory, the generational wealth of 30 families. Now you start doing the rule of 72 on 30 families. Now we talking about some financial impact, sis. I'm done.
I love this. Well, look, I got a piece of land down in 29 Palms I'm willing to put into the trust to start. So let's talk about it. Look, who's going to build on it? Come on now.
Man. You know what? It's so many beautiful Black people who have land, and we are doing great. Let me say this before we get up out of here. This ain't enterprising. This ain't groundbreaking what sis is talking about.
Nope.
We've done it. We just haven't done it on a grand enough scale to have the impact we should have. And let's just be mindful of this. We're talking about 50 years, 60 years removed from segregation and isolation and enslavement. And now we're trying to change the generational and the financial aspects of the burdens that were on us for 300 years. So it's going to take some time, and we have to be mindful of that. And there's phenomenal people out there who have purchased land. Black men, women, single Black moms have purchased land and are doing great things. What's great right now is this internet. I have the platform to bring sis on to share her knowledge, to give it to the next Black person, because when we got our freedom, this didn't exist. And it was word of mouth, and it took time to travel across the lands. Now it's a matter of a heartbeat for info to travel across the lands and across the seas. Sis, I appreciate you so much. Go enjoy your premiere showings.
I will.
Elbow rubbing with the hobnobbers, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we'll see what come of it.
Yeah. We're gonna get out of here before we go. Beautiful Black people, subscribe, hit the like button, share. We got one more part 4 coming up next Monday, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 9 p.m. on the East Coast. I see the likes is going up slowly but surely. Again, if it helps one person and one person only, then we've done our job. You know what I'm saying? But please share if you can. And before we get up out of here, Black folks, go have a conversation with somebody that don't look like you, don't sound like you. And if you shut up and listen, you just might learn something. Sis, I love you. Black folks, I love you. Till next time.
Love you too, man. See you next week.
Word.